For context, my husband, 28 years old, and I, 25 years old, got married just a little under a year ago after dating for 3 years. For those first 3 years, intimacy was great, happening often and spontaneously. But around the 3-year mark, some family drama sparked on his side, and I fully believe that unknown to him, he took it out on me by pushing me away and not really initiating us time anymore. The few times he did was only very late at night, when I was groggy, exhausted, and ready for bed. I figured all relationships go through ups and downs, and didn't think much of it, especially as we were also going through some financial issues. Fast forward to us getting married, and all forms of intimacy came to a screeching halt. I thought it was odd, but wrote it off as stress, the adjustment to our new titles, and the mix of me going on a new form of birth control. I really was fine with it, as I don't crave intimacy like the typical person, and rather do a million other things to show that vulnerability. However, about a month ago, I was feeling really insecure about the whole thing, and broke down and went through his phone, knowing I wouldn't find anything, so I could give myself the peace of mind without having a conversation with him about it, assuming he would think I was insinuating he was cheating and cause an argument. Yes, I can fully tell you now that was not what a trusting partner does, and we have talked about rebuilding our trust on both sides of the relationship. However, finding nothing on his phone is not what happened. In fact, I found a few different screenshots of unclothed photos of other women. He has plenty of photos of myself, with one of them dated only 2 weeks after we exchanged our vows. To tell you I was heartbroken is an understatement. He claims that they weren't sent to him and that he accidentally screenshot them while looking at corn. While that in itself sounds like a load of nonsense, I've been trying to see past it and give attention to the bigger issue. Why not just have intimacy with me, your wife? After a long discussion, he stated that he would try to have intimacy with me more, initiate more, and just all around put more time and energy into me and our relationship. So far, that is exactly what he has done. He's been great. He's been putting a lot more effort into pleasing me in bed and compliments my body in ways he hasn't since the very start of our relationship. It all is great, but now I feel like the villain because I can't get those images of other women out of my head. They had bodies that look absolutely nothing like mine. Bigger breasts, very into fitness, longer hair / different colored hair, etc. And now, whenever we have intimacy and all the lights are off, I feel like he has to have the lights off because he doesn't actually want to be having intimacy with me. I'm at an absolute loss on what to do. Every time I try to communicate how I feel about this and how it hurt me a lot, he seems to just want to brush it under the rug and promise it won't happen again. While I am choosing to trust his word, it doesn't undo all the hurt he has put me through these past couple of months of our brand new marriage. I realize this is all my fault, and I wouldn't have even had something to be mad at him about if I hadn't gone through his phone in the first place, making it even harder for me to stand up for my feelings. What would you do? To add, I think I'm doing this right? Still new to Reddit. We have been married for just under 1 year, in which that time is when the nudes on his phone are dated. So this happened only after exchanging vows. I can't have a child to fix it, but we do have a child together from the beginning of our relationship, which does add another level of difficulty to the situation. As far as lights on off during intimacy, it's not that we went from having every light on in the house to all of a sudden making sure it's pitch black. As much as I've noticed that he's more confident and pleasurable with the lights off versus the lull of a nightlight or something of the sort. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. For me, there would be a massive difference between him looking at random women online or corn versus interacting with someone online who sent him unclothed. I personally wouldn't care too much about the first one, but the second is certainly cheating, so I'd ask him to explain himself again and ask more questions about where he saw these photos if they weren't sent to him, etc., and see if you can trust what he says. Regardless of all that, if his behavior made you insecure and you feel he isn't doing enough to reassure you, then you should be in couples counseling and maybe individual therapy. Comment 2. This is not your fault, but I think you and your husband need to have another talk. There is no reason to have intimacy with the lights off, other than that he likely has an intimacy videos addiction. He can't be complimenting you in one breath and then in another ask for the lights to be off during intimacy. I also think you two likely need marriage counseling, as he has broken your trust and is likely not being honest about where those nudes came from. Until he is willing to rebuild the trust through counseling, you two are just sweeping everything under the rug and you are getting hurt in the process. Now, for the update. I'm now back with a detailed update on the situation with my husband. I can't even begin to describe how much has happened since my last post, and I just need to get it all out. So, here we go. 2 days after the initial confrontation, we were at my parents' house for a family barbecue. My husband was acting a little off, which was so obvious. He was just quiet and preoccupied. He spent a lot of time on his phone and kept stepping away from the group, which didn't go unnoticed by my parents. Whenever I tried to talk to him, he gave me these short, distracted answers. It felt like he was there, but not really there, you know? My brother-in-law mentioned seeing my husband at a local bar a few nights ago, and that surprised me. I mean, it wasn't like he was hiding it, but him mentioning it was just weird. When I asked my husband about it, he quickly changed the subject, and I felt this knot in my stomach. That night, I checked his phone again. I know. I'm not proud of it, but I had to know. I found a new set of photos, this time of one woman in different outfits. She looked like a local waitress from the bar, and the photos felt more personal. Like, who takes pictures of someone in different outfits? I confronted him again, and he had the nerve to say he was just being friendly and nothing more. I was so angry, but he just kept dismissing my concerns, saying I was overreacting. The following weekend, we went to a family dinner for my sister's birthday. I was trying so hard to keep things normal, but it was hard. My parents asked about my marriage, and I felt pressured to smile and say everything was great. My husband was texting under the table again, and it just raised my anxiety. After dinner, my sister pulled me aside and expressed concern about my husband's behavior. She said she had seen him out with friends more often, and I just brushed it off, even though it made me uneasy. Over the next week, my sister told me the waitress had been posting pictures of her and my husband on social media. I was so upset. I saw one of the pictures, and it showed them smiling together at the bar. I confronted him again, and he just said it was a friendly photo. My patience was running thin. I decided to go to the bar myself the next weekend. I just had to know what was going on. When I got there, I saw my husband laughing with the waitress. Honestly, it felt like a punch to the gut. The way she leaned in close to him and the way they shared a laugh felt too intimate. My heart was racing, and I left quietly, not wanting to cause a scene. Days later, he came home late again, saying he was working on a side project. I decided to dig a little deeper and found out he had been going to the bar almost every weekend. When I confronted him, we had a heated argument. He accused me of not trusting him, which just made me more frustrated. I was feeling so stuck. I reached out to my sister for support, but when I told her everything, our conversation ended in anger because she sided with my husband. She said I was overreacting, and that just hurt. At my child's school event, I overheard other parents gossiping about my husband's friendly reputation at the bar. It just made everything worse. When I confronted him about the rumors, he brushed me off again, saying I was being ridiculous. The following week, I received a message from an anonymous account on social media. It hinted at my husband's cheating and included a screenshot of him and the waitress together, tagged at a restaurant. My heart was racing when I saw it. I showed the message to him, and he said it was a misunderstanding and told me to ignore it. I felt completely lost and overwhelmed. During Thanksgiving dinner, my husband was distant and distracted again. I decided to confront him in front of everyone, and it turned into a huge argument. Both sides were in shock after it ended. After dinner, he stormed out, leaving me to deal with everything alone. The next day, he came home, but the conversation was cold and filled with resentment. He told me he needed space to think, and I watched him pack a bag and leave for a few days. I just feel so hopeless and confused. I don't know what to do anymore. Edit. My husband returned 2 days later. We had a talk where he admitted to being close to the waitress but insisted nothing physical happened. He expressed regrets about being vague with me and promised to cut ties with her. I suggested couples therapy, and he agreed. We both recognize that our marriage needs work, and we want to try to fix it. My sister apologized for her earlier reaction, and she has been supportive since then. I still feel unsure about everything, but I'm trying to take it one day at a time. Am I the idiot for leaving my controlling boyfriend after he deleted my social media accounts? I'm seeking an outside perspective because I know my friends and family will always take my side. I've also been in a toxic relationship in the past, so I never truly know what is considered normal. My boyfriend is, for lack of a better term, more strict when it comes to our relationship, and I'm having a difficult time navigating my feelings about it. He has expressed to me that he doesn't feel comfortable with me going to the gym, swimming, or concerts without him, which he says is because he doesn't trust that I would shut men down who come up to me. For context, I have never cheated on him or flirted with another man throughout our entire relationship. Concerts are very important to me, but I'm essentially not allowed to go, even with friends. He has stated in the past that if something were to happen, it would be my fault because I put myself in an environment for a man to touch me. In his eyes, I shouldn't do something if my partner feels uncomfortable with it. Every time I spend the night with a friend or stay at home instead of staying at his house, which is extremely rare, he starts fights with me. I never understand what I'm doing wrong. Right now, I work in police dispatch, but my dream since college has always been to work in film and media. My boyfriend doesn't agree, and it has been a big source of conflict. He says that in the field, I will have to work around a lot of men, and he doesn't feel comfortable with it. During our last fight, he said it's not that he doesn't want me to do it. He just wants to feel more secure in our relationship and know that I'd be mean to people who try flirting with me. I feel as if I am constantly reassuring him, and it never helps. I also always tell him when someone comes up to me in public, even though he immediately assumes I did something to cause them to try to speak to me. His perspective is that your partner should be above all else, which I agree with to an extent, but I am worried I'm going to lose myself in the process of loving someone. We have each other's locations, and although I rarely check his, I have a feeling he checks mine consistently. One night I was driving home from work, and it put me one street over from the main road at a random house. He immediately accused me of cheating and started raising his voice at me instead of listening to me. He accuses me of things often with no reasonable evidence. I know he loves me, but I can't help but feel like a child being scolded sometimes. I don't see my friends or family much anymore because he gets upset when I make plans with them. I work 12-hour night shifts 4 days a week, so he feels like it's taking time away from him to do anything else on my off days. He also obsesses over my social media and thinks I post for male attention, which really upsets me. I don't know what to do. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I got past strict, but couldn't read past trust. Relationships are supposed to be built on trust. He's controlling, he's not your parent, and very manipulative. Please take this as experience from this old lady who's dealt with people like this. They play with your mind, and being a people pleaser, you will continue to lose yourself and question your sanity. Pack your stuff when he's not around. Have a trusted friend or family member know that you need to leave and get out. Comment 2. What did I just read? This dude is absolutely ridiculous and literally trying to take your dream away from you because he gets super upset if a man talks to you. Run. Don't walk, run. This guy wants to totally and completely control you. Next is, oops, knocked you up. I guess you will have to stay at my house and raise the kid. Now for the update. 2 weeks passed since the last argument, and the atmosphere was still thick. My boyfriend suggested a weekend trip to his friend's cabin as a way to reconnect. Honestly, it was a last-ditch effort, and I went along with it because I thought a change of scenery might help. Spoiler alert, it didn't. We got in the car, and I was driving when he just had to check my phone. Like, are you kidding me? He insisted he was just curious. Yeah, right. This dude can't just let it go. The cabin was deep in the woods, like some horror movie setting, which made me feel even more isolated. No cell service, no one around, just us and his controlling behavior. We got there, and he immediately demanded I put my phone away to enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment? More like enjoy being cut off from the world. We had dinner with his friends, and he had this iron grip on my chair like I was some prized possession. One of his buddies made a joke about me being whipped. He laughed it off, but it made me uncomfortable as hell. After dinner, everyone sat around the fire, and every time I tried to say something, he interrupted me. The night ended with me feeling invisible while he soaked up the attention from his friends. The next morning, he suggested a hike, calling it fun. Yeah, fun, if I stayed glued to his side. During the hike, he pulled me aside and scolded me for taking too many pictures, saying it looked desperate. Desperate? Really? I noticed he was super quiet on the way back to the cabin. The tension was thick, and not in a good way. I was talking on the phone when he caught me mid-conversation, yanked the phone from my hand and hung up. Like, excuse me? I confronted him and asked why he felt the need to control who I talked to. He brushed it off, saying he was just protecting me from distractions. Protecting me? More like suffocating me. The next morning, I woke up to find he had deleted my social media accounts while I was sleeping. I was furious. I confronted him again, and he downplayed my anger, calling it an overreaction. Not an overreaction, a completely normal reaction to his insane behavior. We spent that day in silence, just coexisting like two strangers. He suggested we play a game with his friends, but I felt too drained to even pretend to be happy. One of his friends commented on my lack of enthusiasm, and boy, did that set him off. He accused me of ruining the weekend, saying I was always negative and ungrateful. I packed my bags, deciding I needed to get the hell out of there. But he blocked the door like a toddler. I managed to push past him in the struggle, grabbed my things, and stormed out. On the way home, I saw a message from my sister, inviting me to a family dinner. I texted her back and said I'd be there. During the dinner, I got a call from my boyfriend, demanding I return to the cabin immediately. Nope, not happening. I turned off my phone and focused on my family, finding solace in their company. The next day, he showed up at my workplace, trying to confront me in front of my colleagues. That was a big no. I calmly walked away, leaving him standing there, confused and frustrated. I got home later that day and knew I had to end this once and for all. I typed out a breakup text, and it felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I sent it and felt a sense of relief wash over me. Edit. I received the breakup text and felt blindsided. I didn't see this coming and had no idea she felt this way. Am I the idiot for refusing to attend my cousin's party after years of being ignored by my family? 9 years ago, my single dad died, and since then, I've been passed on from relative to relative. 5 years ago, I started staying with my grandparents permanently. In the beginning, I was really closed off since, well, the only family I knew died. But after about 2 years, I tried to be more open and participate more with family. However, every time I do, I just end up getting hurt. My family isn't hurtful. They don't really insult me. They let me go to school and gave me a room to stay in. It's just that they don't care for me. A lot of times, they forget I exist. There have been many important religious holidays when the whole family travels to a specific place, and more often than not, I've been forgotten at home even when they've informed me to pack at the last minute. When my grandma buys food for my relatives, I'm never included. The list goes on. They just always forget about me, and they never show any interest in me as a person. If you ask any of my family what I like, they wouldn't be able to name anything, not even my favorite food or color, because they just never paid attention. Even when they don't forget about me, there's a clear favoritism towards the other grandkids. For example, all my cousins received really big 18th birthdays that were paid for by my grandma. They got a lot of gifts and got to celebrate in a hotel. When my 18th birthday came about, my grandma and aunts kept on asking about what I wanted in a way that suggested they didn't want me to have one. For example, "It's almost your birthday. Do you want to have a debut?" "No, right? You don't?" "Yeah, don't have one. It's a hassle." Or how this summer, my grandpa brought all my cousins, both older and younger, with him on a trip except for me. The only times that they actually try to convince me that they love me and care about me is when the topic of my dad gets brought up. But it's so hard to believe them when for a good while I tried so hard to fit in with them and even pretended like the times they joked about how forgettable I am didn't hurt me, but I never got anything out of it. It sucks because I know this, yet every day I get reminded of it and still get so upset. I'm so tired of it. I just want to be able to accept it and stop crying over it because nothing's going to change. I know this, so how do I stop it from affecting me? I also feel the need to point out that I'm not American, since Reddit tends to assume a post is. I'm Filipino, and families are typically very, very close. My family is no different. My relatives are over every single day, and most of them live on the same street. Before anyone suggests it, I have opened up about how I don't feel like I'm a part of the family, and how I get hurt when they don't include me a couple of times. But nothing changed, so I just resorted to pretending like I don't want to be here in the first place. Now, for a few comments before the update. Build your life around you and what makes you happy and healthy. It takes a little time getting used to the idea of not reaching out to family, but it is possible. I barely survived infection 19 alone, then experienced a traumatic brain injury alone, only for my sister to later tell me she started to stop over after a friend's pool party around the corner from my house. Now that I have more or less left them alone, there is a bit of interest, requesting money, of course. Save your time and start living your life. Now for the update. It's been 2 weeks since I posted about feeling invisible in my family. Unfortunately, not much has changed. My 18th birthday came and went without a word from my grandparents or a peep from my aunts or anyone else in the fam. Yeah, it was pretty much like every other birthday for the last decade. No biggie. A few days later, I got a notification on Insta about my cousins posting their birthday party plans. Like, a huge party with all the extras. They invited all the family members, but guess who didn't get an invite? Yup, me. Can't say I was surprised, though. I shot my grandma a text to ask if I'd somehow missed the invite. I mean, with my luck, it wouldn't be the first time. She replied with this super vague message about how they were keeping it small. Whatever. I decided to go to the local diner to treat myself. Nothing like a little greasy food to lift your spirits, right? While I was there, I ran into my aunt who was planning the party. You can guess how that went. She starts rambling about how excited everyone is for the cousin's birthday bash. I texted my siblings to see if they were planning on going. My older brother Jake texts back saying he was invited but thought I wasn't into those things. I mean, really? I confronted him about feeling excluded, and he brushed it off with this whole, it wasn't personal thing. Whatever. That weekend, I decided to go visit my grandparents unannounced. Surprise them, right? I walk in to find my grandma baking a cake for my cousin's party. She didn't even look up as I entered. She was too focused on that cake. I stood there for a few minutes, waiting for her to notice me. Eventually, she asked if I wanted some cookies, which felt super dismissive. I left, and it was back to being alone at home for the next few days. I thought about writing a letter to express how I felt. Maybe that would get through to them. I left the letter on the dining table when I visited for dinner that week. My grandpa found it and read it aloud during dinner without even asking. My aunts laughed it off, thinking it was some kind of joke, while my grandma looked uncomfortable as all hell. That night, my aunt called me to say they didn't mean to hurt me. She suggested I just join in on the fun next time, as if it was that simple. She said she would talk to my grandma about it, but I didn't believe her for a second. A week later, my grandma invited me over for coffee. I went, hoping for a serious conversation about all this, but it was just small talk. We ended up talking about my late dad, which, isn't the worst thing, but it wasn't what I needed. The day of my cousin's party arrived, and surprise, surprise, I was home alone again. Decided to go out for ice cream to distract myself. While I was there, I ran into my cousins celebrating, laughing, and taking photos. It was like a scene from a movie, honestly. They didn't notice me until I awkwardly waved, and they looked surprised. Of course, they invited me to join, but it felt like an afterthought. I declined, saying I was busy, and walked away. Later, my brother texted asking if I was okay after seeing me leave the ice cream shop. Why does he even care? I didn't respond. Edit. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update. Life is pretty much the same, just me at home with my thoughts. My birthday was quiet, no calls from anyone. Got some texts from friends, didn't see my cousins or siblings. Just another day, you know? No big parties, just me. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.